Well, hello, everyone. This is Gene Trowbridge with Trowbridge and Trowbridge Law Group and TLG Talks, and I'm happy to have Michael Flaherty with me today on my interview. Michael, I remember the first time we sat down and talked, I wanted to get some business from you, and you were just doing a homework luncheon with me at the Marriott by the Long Beach Airport.
Long Beach.
Yeah. And that was several years ago, and I think about 25, 26 offerings ago. And I appreciate your business and appreciate you coming on with us, Michael.
No problem, Gene. I remember that lunch vividly. We talked mostly about trips to Hawaii and Minnesota Gopher football, if I remember right.
Well, yeah, because we didn't want to talk much about USC football.
Yeah, but I certainly did, right?
So actually, the Gophers had a good season last year until they went into Iowa or Iowa State. It was something. Anyhow, so Mike, I've got your information on the board here. You're the founder of L5 Investments, and there's your website. And on your website, you do a pretty good job about talking about your background. And I know you, and I've read that. And you had for a young man, you had a long career in really what I call corporate real estate. You did a lot of things, and it would be interesting for watchers of this video to go to your website and read your biography. But how did you get into being a syndicator?
Yeah, and we're in the process of redoing our website. So depending on when people go and look at it, it's a little outdated and antiquated, and we're trying to get into the new century here. But how did I get into apartments? As you touched on, I was in corporate real estate, corporate development. I partnered with some investment bankers out of LA and New York. 2004, 2005 or so, went on my own as a developer, primarily in commercial, some residential, some hospitality. And then 2008 struck, right? If you were in real estate, you went through some challenges. It didn't matter how good your project was, how smart you were, how much money you had or didn't. It was a painful process. And, I took it as really an opportunity, like Warren Buffett often says, and many investors often say, hey, buy when there's blood in the streets. And I shifted my mindset to say, okay, I don't want to do real estate development coming out of this cycle. What's next? And I studied a number of different asset classes that I had done before. I had a little of experience and a little bit of everything. And I figured, hey, now's the time to pick one and step in with both feet and ride it through the next cycle. And here we are maybe at the end of that cycle this year and going into next year. But as I studied different asset classes, I just learned more and more about the stability of apartments and the stability of multifamily in good times and in bad. And jumped in with both feet, started buying, 100 to 400 unit garden style Class B apartments in 2009 and have really stayed true to that strategy since then.
Mike, when you did your first syndication, did you have enough money to do the deal yourself, or did you have to find some investors?
I had to find a lot of investors. I had some experience raising capital on the development side, but raising capital in 2009 was a different ballgame. It didn't matter whether you had experience or not. It certainly was a challenge. And I partnered with a gentleman who had found an apartment deal, and he said, "Hey, I raised half the capital. Can you raise the balance?" Which I think was about $2 million. I had the raise, and I was blessed. I raised it pretty quickly from a database of my investors that I had a good track record with in the past, and it worked out. Needed some help along the way. His raise fell short at the last second, and I think we were 2 weeks away from closing, and we were about 700,000 short. That's always a stressful, that's probably the most stressful time in my career, when you're hard with $500,000 and you're short 700,000. And I brought in a relationship of mine that I had known in the past, and he brought some of his investors and filled the balance of that 700,000. And we've had a really good run ever since. And that individual was Derek, Gene.
Was Derek, of course. We've interviewed Derek, and that's a good story. When I ask people that, how you get into syndication, almost everyone says that they got into syndication because they were buying a property that was too big for them to handle financially on their own. Some people say, well, I wanted to buy a big enough property so that I could get professional management and make a statement. And some people said, well, no, I just bought little properties and then I wanted to get bigger and I had to bring in investors. That's how I started. That's how we all started. So over the years that I've worked with you, you and Derek have gone out and found your own projects to do. And then you've also found some good co-sponsors or other people who have found projects, and you've really been responsible for bringing in part of the capital stack. Is that going to be your same strategy going forward in the next 2 or 3 years?
The initial strategy was really to build up the business, to take it to an institutional level. That was the goal from the beginning. 2009, 2010 was to build a track record and then attract institutional capital. And, it's been 11 years now, right? 11, 12 years later, that's no longer our goal. We love the flexibility we have by working with our own investors and our own equity. We control the decisions, we control the deals. And it can also be said that we have the opportunity to make more money that way. So that strategy is not changing, which I think is a little unique. You see a lot of groups grow. We'll typically buy 1,000 units a year, plus or minus 100 million per year. So certainly that's large enough to take it and to attract institutional capital. But our plan is really to stick with the folks, the investors that got us here. We have a very, as I mentioned, loyal following, strong track record. So we're sticking with, from an equity standpoint, using our own capital and using private investors who will invest anywhere from 50,000 to upwards to a couple million.
Mm-hmm. And you do Regulation D, Rule 506B offerings, but you only take accredited investors, right? Correct. If I remember.
Yep.
Right. Good. That's very good. And are you accepting new investors into your investor pool these days?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a huge part of our business. Whether it's a new investor, most of our business comes from referrals, mm-hmm. Which is great. It comes from a referral from an investor that's been in 5, 10, 20 deals with us over the last decade. Can really talk to our ethics and our track record, and that alone creates a nice pipeline of new investors. So absolutely, we're always looking to make new relationships and grow the business with new people that will stay with our family for a while.
I know that you travel all around the country to meet with investors, and I think I remember seeing you sitting outside of a Starbucks at the Poipu Shopping Center one morning when I came over to get coffee for my wife and myself. I think you were sitting on a table outside talking to probably a potential investor in Kauai. So yes. You never know. You're never sitting idle. I know that's for sure. Well, I appreciate your time today, and what I'd like to get to is the issue of being a rookie in the business. You may or may not know that I'm putting on virtual classes. It's called Rookie Camp, Rookie Training Camp, and it's 2 3-hour sessions that typically are on a Tuesday and a Thursday morning, and you can't sign up if you've done a syndication. You absolutely have to be a rookie. And we take 15 people, and we're building an alumni of rookies. And over my career, I always followed that we get two deals in from existing clients, and then we should get a new deal in from a brand new client. And so I'm trying to work and continue that. So um, we just do that. We do that once a month. And what advice, Mike, would you have for a rookie, someone who's thinking about coming into the syndication business today?
Well, there's two things that immediately pop in my mind. One is certainly surround yourself with good, smart people, and build your team, and protect yourself. The last thing we want to do is do a deal that goes sideways. So we take a lot of pride in, my investors say I sandbag, but it's really analyzing and underwriting conservatively. So we have a long-standing reputation of having happy investors. I think that also comes from a liability protection standpoint, is working with people like Eugene. We certainly have investors, but we don't always know the right thing to do, and don't always understand the legalities that are changing from a legal securities exchange standpoint. So you've been a big part of that, Gene, along the way. So I think
Thanks.
it goes back to building, surrounding yourself with the right people. I think knowing your investors well and personally, for us, is very important. I'm not the hugest fan of crowdfunding because of that. I like to have a personal relationship with my investors. We take a lot of pride in making ourselves available. Email, phone calls, text me in the middle of the night if you're an investor with a question. We want that kind of exposure. I know not everybody does, or that kind of availability, because we want to have that relationship.
Yeah, I get that stuff from Derek. You don't bug me like that, but your partner Derek will be on my butt all the time. So I understand.
But I think understanding your investors is really important. Those relationships on your first deal might carry you through your 10th deal, 20th deal. Doing right by them, doing a solid by them with your first relationship, first deal, could create 10 more investors down the road, 20 more investors down the road. So as I said, building the right team, educating yourself, working with the right people, such as Eugene. And then secondly, take it slow. My partner and I together, we've bought and sold over 6,000 units. Our current portfolio is valued at close to 600 million. And, new people also, I'll use your term, Gene. Rookies always often ask me, hey, how did you get started? And I'm on stage someplace talking about my story. And, it's, I have to think about it at times. It's been a while and it's been a fun road, but it starts slow. And it starts by doing things right, dotting your I's, crossing your T's. But it's one deal at a time. For me, it was one deal a year. If I did one good deal a year, you want to do 4 deals a year or 10 deals a year, right? But in the syndication space, you have to build up that track record. You have to build up that this relationships where investors trust you, and it doesn't happen overnight. At least for us, it hasn't. So it was one deal a year the first year, one deal a year the second year, and then the third year it's 2 deals. And then the fourth year, it might be three deals, but it certainly takes some time. And I think patience and being conservative about your approach and trying to be, trying to really be considered an industry expert in your space are some great ways to get started.
Well, I agree with you on when I do my training classes. At the end, I put up a list of 10 things that I think in order that I think people should do to do their first deal. And the number one thing is find someone to do this with. I'm a big believer in continuity. Mike, if I gave you my $50,000, what would happen if something happened to you? Well,
Yeah.
you got to have that answer, right? And
Yeah.
there are more things to it. If I don't have enough net worth to get a lender to give me a loan, I better find another member of the manager group who's got a good financial statement. And then the second thing I say is your database of investors. I think this business is always, always about building the database of investors. In fact, I happen to believe it's more of a people business than it is a real estate business. And then the third thing I tell them is to do your first deal on a specific property. And that's what you guys do. You always do specific properties. So that's all great. The troubles that I had as a syndicator over my career always came from trouble that investors had in their lives. We came through the 87 Tax Act, 91 and 94, and we had some troubled times in the real estate business, like you talked about, 2008. But we could deal with that. But I could never deal with an investor who called me and said, something's happened in my life. I need my liquidity, or what the heck. And you kind of have to be ready for that. And it is a huge people business. And in some regards, Mike, I don't know if it'll ever happen to you, but that's one of the things that drove me out of the business. The last big year I had, I sent out 1,676 K1s. And that was a lot at the time when there were no back office companies to help you.
Yeah.
You had to fully staff. And I tell everyone I licked envelopes and put stamps on for about 3 months doing that. There was no help. So I always say the care and maintenance of investors got to me.
Yes. That's not the fun part of the business, Gene. Absolutely.
No, it's not. So you just have to remember that. And, for a rookie, you go out and do your first 3 deals, and all of a sudden you've got 75 closest best friends. You got 25 people in each deal, and you're still not making any money, really.
Yes.
Because you had to buy a desk and hire an assistant, and there goes all your management fees. So you got to run it like a business. And you and Derek have the right attitude. Well, I know you've got someone waiting for you, and a more important person than I am. You have to run and meet your wife and do something. And I appreciate you stopping for a while today and taking time with me. And I wish you the best.
Hey,
and
Gene,
hopefully, yes.
Let me just touch on a couple things that you said. So, I always say this business is about being, picky and patient. Picky, patient, and prudent equals profits. So, to your point, it takes time. There's no doubt about it. Like any business, whether it's real estate or something else, it's never a sprint. It's a marathon, right? It's years of hard work. Sometimes years where, as you said, you're working really hard. You're not making a lot of money. The wealth takes a while to really kick in. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on, which is so true when you talk about this being a people business, is certainly we're I think an outsider will say, hey, we're real estate investors, right? But the reality of it is we're really a wealth management company. We're very different from your traditional financial planner or financial advisor, but there's a lot of commonality. The most important thing we do is manage our investors' capital. That's what keeps us up at night, making sure that we perform for them and do the right thing for them and communicate properly with them and give them the confidence that we're managing their money properly. That's the number one thing we do. And my mindset has really changed through the years that we're that first before we are a real estate, investment business. And the other thing I say a lot is, people say, what do you really do? And I say, well, we're in the needle in the haystack business, right? Good deals with good people are very hard to find. And you have to be patient to find the right partner, build the right people for your team and find the right deals that make sense for your investors. Sometimes it might be 5 deals a year. Sometimes it might not be any deals a year that are a good fit for you and your investors. So
I think you're right. One of the mistakes that I made as a syndicator, and I raised my money a little differently than you're doing now, is I use the broker dealer network. Lucky, great marketing, very fast money raises when it was time. But I always felt pressured to have a product on the street, because what I had to do is I had to go in the broker dealers and tell the broker dealers that I had a product. If they liked it, they would raise the money from their people. Well, if I'm not in front of the broker dealer today with my product, Mike Flaherty's in front of the broker dealer with his product. And I wonder if that broker dealer puts his investors in Mike's projects, will I ever see that investor's money again? So I pulled the trigger on a product in Carson. I remember an office building with a credit union for the main floor tenant. And I pulled the trigger before the final approval of the credit union came through. And we got into some, I don't know which of the many financial deals that happened over my career. Something happened, I don't know, it was 94 or 91 or whatever, and they did not get their permit. So I had the ground floor of a building, an empty building, and I was on an uncovered construction loan. So it was kind of a challenge, if you can imagine. I mean, it worked out okay, but it was kind of a challenge. All right. Now, can I say goodbye to you?
Yes.
Okay. Now you can go meet your wife and do whatever important thing you have. And so once again, I thank you very much. This interview will play in a couple of weeks, and I'll let you know about it. And you guys maybe can pass it through your social network channel. Mike Flaherty, founder of L5 Investments, good client of mine and a good friend. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Gene. If you think of something else, let's hop on and do it again. Be happy.
Okay, I'd love to.
Always good to see you and always good to talk to you. Let's do it again soon. Let me know.
Thank you.